Welcome to the White House. My name is Kyle Learman. I run the Champions of Change program out of the White House Office of Public Engagement. Really excited to have all of you here today. So first, the important part and the thing you all are here for, let's welcome our Champions of Change. All right, so just a couple logistical notes. You guys can take your seats. For those of you who are on Facebook or Twitter, feel free to tweet about this, to Facebook about this, to send pictures to friends. We're using the hashtag WHChamps. So John Carson, who's the Director of Public Engagement, is actually not here today, but I know he's tweeting about Champions of Change from LA. But today, to get us started off and to kick off the day, we have a really special guest, Roberto Rodriguez, who's the Special Assistant to the President for Education Policy. Roberto?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the White House. It's a pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon and to celebrate today's School Turnaround Champions of Change. As Kyle mentioned, my name's Roberto Rodriguez. I serve the President as his Special Assistant for Education. We here on the Domestic Policy Council, so we coordinate and integrate his education priorities across the government. And it's a real honor to share the stage today with some of the real champions here who have been driving change and really helping to build an America that's built to last in the communities across our country. You know, early in his administration, the President committed us to ensure that every child has access to a complete and competitive education from the days that they're born to the day that they begin a career. And that agenda reaches from early childhood education, from that development in education in the early years, all the way through a child's life through adult education. And the President's made this a priority because he really believes we need to do much more than just recover from this recession that we've been in. We need to really create an America that's built to last. We need an American economy that restores economic security for the middle class, where hard work and responsibility is rewarded, and where everyone who wants a good job can find one. And the President's plan for his education agenda acknowledges these shared challenges that we have as Americans to really realize that vision, that grand contest that we face globally, which is a contest to win the future and to make sure that each and every one of our young people has the opportunity to really thrive and succeed in the global marketplace. At the end of the day, this is a contest that we must win for our nation's future and for the future of our children. It's a contest that we must win in order to really build a new economy. And the centerpiece at the heart of that contest is the work that each and every one of you are doing to really deliver a world-class education to each and every one of our young people. We believe that winning that contest really requires that we foster a race to the top across our education system and across our schools, a race that will raise expectations for students, for teachers, for our schools, for our leaders. We know we need to undertake urgent efforts to keep America's teachers in our classrooms. Just this past week, the White House released a report showing that this economic recession has had a particularly challenging impact on the education sector. We've lost over 300,000 teacher and other educator jobs over the past several years. So we know we need urgent resources to support keeping our teachers in our classrooms while also making sure that we're ushering in the right reforms to strengthen the teaching profession, to improve the effectiveness of instruction, to boost student engagement and learning in our classrooms. And while we must take on this ambitious work of closing the achievement gap and turning around our low-performing schools, we also know we need to do more to provide the flexibility that our teachers need and that our principals need to develop the new and innovative policies and practices, those creative practices and those strategies that are needed to be able to really teach with passion, ultimately to drive better outcomes for all of our students and make sure that they're prepared to graduate ready for success. So we've made significant progress across our administration on a whole host of reforms. I don't want to take too much time to run through all of those today. I've talked a little bit about Race to the Top. We're doing more to really make sure that we're also fixing the No Child Left Behind Act so that it's working better for schools and for teachers and principals and ultimately for students. We've offered flexibility to develop and implement better ways for our states and school districts to really be able to provide our kids the curriculum and the support they need to be able to be successful. And we've granted flexibility through our ESEA waiver process already to over 33 states. We've launched a new Investing in Innovation Fund where we're trying to develop the next generation of strategies and solutions that will help close the achievement gap and help really engage our learning, our children in their learning and in their success. And we've launched new initiatives, new efforts like Promise Neighborhoods, which provides a holistic, comprehensive, whole child approach from cradle all the way through high school graduation to make sure that some of our young people in our most impoverished neighborhoods have the supports, the comprehensive supports that they need to be able to be successful. But that really, all of that brings me back to why we're here today, which is to talk a little bit about the President's investment in some of our nation's lowest performing schools. This is a central component of the President's vision to really build an America that's built to last. And right now we have about 1,700 high schools in our country, as you all well know, and their feeder middle schools. This is about 12% of the total high schools in our country that where we can track about half of America's dropouts, 3/4 of our dropouts of color, our African American and Latino dropouts, can be found in some of these communities. So that led us to urgent effort by our administration to double down on investing in resources and in reform in those communities. And through the School Improvement Program, through the SIG program, we've made unprecedented investments now, over $4.5 billion, to really dramatically change the way that students are served in those schools, to really look at what are the changes that we need in curriculum, what are the changes that are needed in services and support for those students and after-school services, what are the changes that are needed around how we look at data in those schools, how we respond to the academic needs of those students, how we tweak interventions for those students. And so from what we know so far, this SIG program, our School Improvement Grant Program, has indeed been a catalyst and an accelerator for dramatic change in these schools. We've already begun to see encouraging progress in reading and math proficiency, even just over 1 year. And we're continuing to gather data from across the country on these outcomes in our SIG schools. The more important point here is that across the country, our school principals, our teachers, our community leaders, our superintendents are all working together. They're coming together to build schools where students want to be, where they want to learn, where they want to succeed. Schools that really instill a culture of success and a culture of possibility for our young people. And that's what this program is all about. It's incredibly tough work. It's not work that we expect to do alone at the federal level. We know we have a shared responsibility, but ultimately it's work we want to engage each and every one of you in to move forward. We know that we need to build a new community culture in many of our SIG schools that views success and graduation for our students as everyone's shared responsibility. And that includes making sure that we're working closely and genuinely with our parents, with our families, with our communities in this effort to turn around our low-performing schools. So the leaders that we're going to recognize today are here to share their stories, share those exceptional stories of success with us, and to remind us each and every day that the change that we hope to achieve through this school improvement program begins locally. They all share a common and deep commitment to students, to their communities, to their country. They share in this belief that this school improvement work is really about fortifying our democracy. It's about fortifying our country and creating this economy that will work for everyone, will deliver opportunity for everyone. Each of our champions has adapted turnaround strategies to fit the unique needs of their particular school, of their particular community, and they come at the implementation of turnaround from a variety of perspectives. So we'll hear from the perspectives of principals, of teachers, of support providers, of advocates, and so importantly, they come with the perspective of parents in mind, because we know that our parents ultimately want the best, and want our schools to deliver upon the best for our students. So I'm privileged and honored now to introduce each of these champions so that they may discuss their perspectives and discuss how the School Improvement Grant Program has really made an impact locally in their communities. So I'm going to ask each of these SIG champions to stand and be recognized as they're introduced. Our first SIG champion of change is David Cicerella. David? Great. And David has been a classroom teacher, a staff developer, and an instructional coach for 28 years in the New Haven public school system in Connecticut. Dave is also the president of the New Haven Federation of Teachers, a model local chapter around leading reform. And in this role, he's led school improvement efforts that have produced a new 4-year contract emphasizing collaboration and cooperation in the district. Thank you, David. Our next champion of change, Jessica Gogarty. Jessica, hi. Jessica is a national board certified teacher, a presidential awardee for excellence in math and science teaching, and a school improvement leader now serving in Roosevelt High School in Des Moines, Iowa. She served as North High School in Des Moines, Iowa for 15 years, where student achievement rose dramatically after receiving a school improvement grant. Our next champion of change is Karen Puff. Yes, please have a seat. Karen? Karen is a former Site Council Chair and current English Department Chair for Ontario High School in Ontario, Oregon. She began her teaching career in Ontario High School in 2008 and has taught English, writing, reading, language, and freshman success courses there in Ontario. Our next champion of change is Dr. Tanya Green. Dr. Green is the principal of Friendship Prep Academy at Calverton, a turnaround school in Baltimore, Maryland. A former at-risk student herself, Dr. Green has envisioned and overseen several innovative initiatives in order to change one of Baltimore City's lowest performing and more persistently dangerous schools into one of the city's brightest shining stars. Our next champion of change is Wendell Wakow. Wendell. For the past 8 years, Wendell Wakow has served as superintendent of schools of the Menominee Indian School District, the only district in the state of Wisconsin to be located almost entirely on an Indian reservation. And in his role, Wendell has led school improvement efforts that focus not just on academics, but also on healthy eating, physical activity, and other supports, Menominee language and culture, and on-site healthcare services. Our next champion of change is Linda St. Andre. Linda St. Andre is currently the principal of Governor James B. Longley Elementary School in Lewiston, Maine, the state's first turnaround school. She's worked for Lewiston Public Schools for over 30 years in various teaching and administrative capacities, including special education, elementary education, and as a Title I coordinator. I'm also going to recognize and ask that some of our other champions also briefly stand These will be folks that will be on your second panel, but I want to have an opportunity to introduce them now. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on here. Our next champion of change, if you could please stand, is David Romick. David serves as president of the Dayton Education Association, the Ohio Education Association affiliate in Dayton, Ohio. And his simple philosophy, focus on the local, has contributed to creating a collaborative atmosphere within the school district, which has helped to put the Dayton Public Schools on the road toward improvement. Our next champion of change is Brett Bernard. Brett is the principal of Emerson Elementary School in Kansas City, Kansas. During his 2 years at Emerson, the school has made drastic changes to improve instruction, increase parent and community connections, extend learning time for students, and build a culture of excellence and innovation for students and staff. Our next champion of change is Lucia. As a community and family specialist and as a parent of 2 students at the school, Lucia Requeñas provides the bridge that connects schools and families to the critical services that they need to succeed at Emerson Elementary in Kansas City, Kansas. In her role, she has made it her mission to empower parents to play a leading role in the performance and success of their students and ultimately of their school. Our next champion of change is Kristen Hayes. Kristen is a native Washingtonian, a professional visual artist, and an arts educator for the District of Columbia Public Schools, who has exhibited nationally and internationally over a span of more than 10 years. Her most recent initiative is called Color is Life, where the transformative powers of color are applied to the walls of any social environment, like schools, in need of therapeutic adjustment. She represents Savoy Elementary School, which is participating in the Turnaround Arts Initiative through the President's Committee on Arts and the Humanities. Our next champion of change is Edward Wiest. Edward Wiest currently works at Plenty Coup High School in Pryor, Montana, as a mathematics teacher, where he is actively involved with school improvement through a Schools of Promise grant. He's a member of the School Improvement Labor Management Team. He chairs the local Montana Behavior Initiative Committee, and he's working on obtaining National Board Teacher Certification. And our final champion of change is Mr. Kevin Gray. Kevin Gray. Mr. Gay moved into the role of principal at Leslie County High School, a persistently low-achieving school in Hyden, Kentucky, in the fall of 2010. He's proud to have led his school to 16th on the state's Transitional Academic Index, and he believes that school success will only continue to improve based on obtaining and analyzing data to make decisions and drive results. I'd like to ask each of you to give all of our champions of change a rowdy applause. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Deb Delisle, who serves as our administration's Assistant Secretary for Elementary and Secondary Education at the U.S. Department of Education. Deb is going to go ahead and lead us forward with our first panel. We can ask our second panelist to go ahead and step off stage for now. Before her appointment as Assistant Secretary, Deb served as our State Superintendent of Instruction at the Ohio Department of Education from 2008 to 2011. And previously, she worked for the Cleveland Heights University Heights City School District in Ohio as superintendent and as associate superintendent. Deb is a lifelong educator. She started her career as an elementary teacher in Connecticut, and she serves in a variety of roles at the school district level in Ohio. We're really grateful in the Obama administration to have Deb's leadership, to have her passion, to have her expertise at the department, overseeing all of our school turnaround initiatives and several other programs that aim to improve academic achievement and opportunity and to really drive educational equity for all of our students in elementary and secondary education. So please join me in welcoming Deb and our first group of turnaround champions.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Roberto, for that very kind introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like I'm the thorn among roses here. But let me congratulate all of the champions of change. It's just so invigorating to me, and I just feel so optimistic about the future of our schools and the future trajectory of all of our students when we have such dedicated individuals, from parents to community members to teachers, administrators, and everyone in between, playing various roles to really ensure that our children have the best opportunities possible. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to start with you, David, and it'll give everyone else a chance to formulate their sentence, but so not you, being a fellow Connecticut person. I'm going to ask each of our panel members to just be very brief, because they only have one sentence for a response. And just one sentence that best describes to the folks who have gathered here today the proudest moment of your work, the biggest celebration that you could think of, all in one sentence.
It's great going first, huh? But I perhaps maybe in one sentence, and is the collaboration that we've had. We've worked very hard together. Doesn't mean we always agree, but we've worked really hard. We've collaborated, and we've dealt with some very, very tough issues on the teacher side and the education side, and perhaps that's what I'm most proud of.
Great, thank you.
I think the proudest moment was the day that we got our first set of test scores at the end of our first year, and the staff just gave up a cheer that you wouldn't believe, because we had worked so hard together. We had done so much together to really make that happen, and to have the results, we were astounded.
You are an English teacher, correct?
Yes, I
So you
am.
grading them on their, run-on sentences? Okay, just no pressure for the rest of the group, just asking.
Honestly, no. Thinking of my sentence. Mine's actually a quote from a student, a very low achieving student, who came up to me and with tears in her eyes and was just saying, you know, Miss, this is the first time I've ever felt confident in myself, and that just about did it for me.
Thank you. Tanya?
My proudest moment was receiving our test scores back this year and realizing that our students with special needs had met the target this year. We have several students with IEPs, and to know that we worked very hard and they worked very hard to achieve was a big proud moment for me.
Wonderful. Wendell?
My proudest moment was our last graduation ceremony, in which we were able to tell our community that we had achieved a 94% graduation rate of cohort freshmen, where 5 years ago, we were promoting 50% of our kids onto 10th grade. So I was just so proud of our students and our staff.
Wonderful, thank you. And Linda?
One of my proudest moments was this summer in our summer program, seeing some of our older students, 5th and 6th graders, tutor younger students, and seeing some of those kids who may have had some behavioral challenges step up to the plate and become leaders and teachers themselves. We saw a whole new side of some of our most difficult students. That was awesome.
Thank you. Aren't they awesome? This is so great, so optimistic. So any person who's ever written a negative story about school should be here right now. So that was an editorial comment, I apologize. So I'm going to dig a little deeper, and I'm not going to restrict you to one sentence. We often discuss and talk about or describe achievement gaps in terms of achievement test scores. And I'm really concerned that perhaps we haven't shown as bright a light on what I refer to as access and opportunity gaps. And these opportunity gaps plague some of our most challenged students, and certainly some of the schools in which you're working. So I'd like you, and you don't have to go in any specific order here, I'd really like you to share with me and with our group here an example of how your specific site ensures access and opportunity for all kids, especially those who are most challenged, and certainly in the areas of access to rigorous curriculum and support structures that are needed for success.
Well, one of the things we did at North High School that was really very helpful to us is we looked at the students who were not quite proficient in reading, and then we targeted them and grouped them together based on what skills they need. So if they weren't very good at fluency, we worked with just the kids who need fluency with the teacher, like the choir teacher who's good at fluency. Or if they weren't good at comprehension, we had them work with the biology teacher who was really good at getting comprehension out of the text, and really targeted our staff development for how to teach those students and teach those skills so that they can now read and access that information for themselves, whether it's in a textbook, online, or whatever. So that's one. We did several one-to-one initiatives and all that too.
One of our primary initiatives when we started in this turnaround process was to outfit every classroom with the most up-to-date technology. We were still teaching from chalkboards and chalk and chart paper, and we really weren't engaging our students and meeting their needs. And so every classroom is outfitted with an interactive whiteboard. We have a smart lab for our students from pre-K to 8 to go in and learn and explore the solar system, technology. Every student has access to computer technology in our new computer labs. We built science labs, but then we even dug deeper past the academics and begin to look at how can we engage our students in things like lacrosse. So we have a lacrosse team, we have a soccer team, we have a track team to really bring in and engage our students, full circle, wraparound services, just to really meet their needs and begin to give them the opportunities that they would normally miss.
At Ontario High School, we're beginning to do some of those things. Like I know we have a big push for language and literacy interventions because we have such a high need for those. And really trying to get at the lowest grade level, those students who are at first, second, third grade level reading and writing, getting them to the classes that will teach them the foundational knowledge of English. And this will be the first year where we will be able to implement it at our middle school, so that hopefully by the time they get up to the high school, we'll be able to offer them higher level classes. We're also, we have a lot more college credit courses that we're offering, and we have a new science wing that will offer biomedical and robotics, and just trying to create a staff that's really collaborative, really open to sharing their best practices and helping each other out.
At Menominee Indian High School, particularly the school district, we have a number of things that we're doing with college readiness. For instance, our students are able to take distance learning classes via distance learning. Our students, high school students, can take college courses at our College of Menominee Nation. We have a partnership with them. We also have pre-college opportunities. We have a pre-college partnership with a top-notch university, UW-Wisconsin-Madison, which actually starts at middle school, and as kids go through the program, they actually go on-site at UW-Madison, live on campus, and experience college life and college learning.
And I'm assuming most of those students would be first-generation college students?
A good majority are first-generation college students, yes.
In New Haven, we really did is we really changed the practices and the policies as to how we select students and how we place students in their courses, so that we don't end up inadvertently having exclusionary policies where students can't get the different tracks and things and access to courses. So we've done a pretty good job with that. That was in the short term to fix it. In the long term, we really put in as part of our systemic reform wraparound services, so that we don't get in a situation where students are in high school and, well, you can't take that course because you're not ready for that course. So the long-term solution is the wraparound starting from pre-K and work their way up, so that when students get to high school, they'll all be ready for algebra and advanced courses that they need for college.
One of our initiatives at Longley has been to provide students with many field trip experiences in our community. At our school, we're 65% immigrant students who mostly come from Somalia. And many of these children don't have the vocabulary or the background knowledge skills to bring with them to the learning in their classroom. So we've really been focused on giving them just everyday experiences that, that most of them have not ever had.
Wonderful, thank you. You know, as you're describing certain pieces of work or describing some initiatives that you're doing, I'm struck by how important it is to really focus in on the culture of your particular school setting. Getting people to not think about kids in disparate groups, thinking about that all of our kids can succeed. And that's a huge shift for some folks, and it's a huge shift in terms of the policies and practices, because some of our own policies or practices get in the way of students, for example, as you mentioned, David, accessing certain courses. So talk a little bit and share with us a little bit about the work that you certainly had to do on the front end to get people thinking. So you receive a school improvement grant, and that's great. And I know when I've gotten grants, it's Yahoo, and then the next day it's like, ooh, the work now begins. Like, it was more exciting to be in the process of getting the grant, right? So the work begins. So what did you do? What are some things that you just walked in and you didn't have, you weren't the Pied Piper necessarily. People weren't going to jump on your bandwagon and say, yeah, we weren't doing our jobs. We didn't feel good about what we were doing, or our work wasn't happening for kids. So how did you go about doing that? How do you build that culture?
Well, at North, we were the lowest achieving high school in the state of Iowa. So it wasn't too hard to convince the staff that that was something that needed to be changed. And they were...
You didn't have T-shirts that said, like, lowest performance.
No, we didn't. But, you know, it was exciting because we had a really compassionate and highly talented teaching staff. We were just all going our own way. We're all separated. So one of our biggest things that we had to do is we had to get all of us together and moving in the same direction and thinking the same way and using the same terminology and kind of harnessing our power together. So, you know, after this experience, I don't think I'd ever want to teach alone again, because having people to really talk about our instructional strategies and our instructional challenges together and solve those problems together collaboratively was really one of the most powerful and most influential thing that we did.
I can, I'm sorry. I was just going to add, you mentioned collaboration. That's the term we use a lot. And it's a very nice word, and we all agree on it. But I will say it's probably the most difficult thing. It's the hardest work is to collaborate. It was so much easier when we were fighting. I mean, you can just go off to your corners.
Not good modeling for children.
No, definitely not. But so I think it really is, though, starting the conversation and getting away from blaming, and that's, boy, that's easier said than done. But once you do start that, I mean, you find you get some traction for it, because the impetus is out there, and people do want to do that. I mean, everyone would prefer to cooperate, there's no question about it. But it's just difficult, and I mean, it's easier to get the kids to collaborate and cooperate. The adults, much more difficult in this system that I think we all find. But I think that's maybe perhaps one of the biggest things, is that to get the mindset changed so that you can get started on it, and it doesn't happen at once. It is a slow process, agonizingly slow sometimes, but once it does get some traction, it does move pretty well.
I think we're tripping over each other up here.
This is exciting that you're all so bubbly.
I think for us, it was really a big challenge. We're kind of unique in that we are not a charter school. We're not really we're still part of our school district, but we have a lead charter operator, Friendship Public Charter Schools, that comes in and works primarily with us, with our district. And sometimes it's almost like you're serving two masters, because sometimes they can have opposing initiatives. I think for us, it was, again, that collaboration, having both our school district and our charter school operator come in and show us how to collaborate, but also showing us what we were doing well. So it wasn't that we were starting over from scratch, but they were actually acknowledging what we were doing well, and now here's how it can be better. And I think that really helped us in the work.
As you can see, I wanted to jump on that collaboration bandwagon. But I wanted to add a piece about community engagement, which, I don't know, there's so many different ways to define it, but we look at it as people who of same proximity, geographical relation, similar interests, working together for the betterment of a cause. And so we look at, the graduation crisis in our district more like a public health crisis, because we're looking at obesity, we're looking at mental health, AODA. And so what we've been fortunate to do is to go out into our community, bring the community in, and bring the resources to the kids, because, if we could believe all kids can learn, then we have to be willing to educate the whole child. And we're just fortunate with our staff, our leadership, our community agencies. We've just been blessed in that journey.
And just to piggyback on that, I think the community is so important, and the perception of the community of our school is very, very important. Lewiston's my hometown, so I grew up with all the stereotype statements about the downtown school, and it's just about getting in there and shining a positive light on all the good things that are going on there and focusing on that and making sure that the public is aware of it. That has been huge for us at Longley. You know, when I first started there, we did some cosmetic kinds of things to brighten the place and make it look more inviting, and you know, just publicizing the fact that PBIS data shows that our kids do behave and do well. So it's just a matter of finding the positives, and I think that encourages everyone, students, staff, and the whole community.
So it leads, you know, it strikes me, and I would walk away from this room believing that you are all leaders. And unfortunately, sometimes people view leadership from a hierarchical role or a certain title. So talk to us about how you've changed your perception about leadership, and how vital do you think it is to have various roles associated with leaders and leadership, assuming responsibilities, if you will, if that's part of the role of the leader, as well as casting the vision and working collaboratively together.
Well, as we were talking before this whole event, what I heard a lot of people talking about was how to get teacher leadership and to really develop the capacity of the teachers in the classroom. If you've got a real thorny problem, the people in the classroom usually have some good ideas. If you could just get them together to figure it out, or give them a vehicle, a structure to solve some of those problems, and really be clear about what your non-negotiables are. What do you have to do? What do you have to be successful in solving this problem? And your teachers will come through. So having a lot of different leadership pathways for teachers, not just administrator or classroom teacher and that's it, but more pathways for people to really kind of develop that capacity and be leaders in the school.
I think when you talk about turnaround work, because we are talking about some of our lowest performing schools with some of our neediest children and families, the best way to really empower your staff, your students, your community is to really employ servant leadership, to just roll your sleeves up and not just tell people what to do and dictate and mandate, but to do the work side by side, alongside with your staff and your students. And that makes them feel as though it really can be done.
So can you give us a specific example of how you've done that?
I can give you many examples. And so, for example, things as small as lunch duty. Entry, if you want to really stress to teachers in the turnaround or any school the importance of being on time for work, be the first person at work. Make sure you're working with them to solve crisis. You are serving the lunch. We had an incident one day where the hot water didn't work in the cafeteria. And so I ran down to the cafeteria and started making lunches. That means a lot to teachers. If a teacher has to leave early, I'll teach your class. If a teacher's having issues with planning, let me help you co-plan. I'm a teacher too. I'm a science teacher. I know how to write a plan. Let me co-teach. Let me model. Let me demonstrate. Because a lot of our schools are not just the lowest achieving, they also are poor facilities. So my school has no air conditioning. So I'm in there, in the heat, in the classroom, doing small groups, pulling small groups, dealing with discipline, showing them how to transition. That empowers them.
Tell them about painting the walls.
Oh, we paint the bathrooms. It's just an investment. And I think that for my school, where it was when I got there in 2005 to where it is now, really took a lot of the servant leadership and the modeling, where teachers now paint with me. Teachers now come in and say, let me paint my desks, versus me doing it myself with the custodian over the summer. And so I think it's for this work and for you to really make change, you have to serve, not have a perception of being served.
I'd like to add to serve. First of all, we have air conditioning in our high school.
Lucky devil. You lucky devil.
But when I was blessed by a mentor who told me that leadership is simply about influence, nothing more. And that just because you're in a leadership position doesn't necessarily mean people are going to give you the permission to lead them. So I've been fortunate that we've put that leadership into the schools with our principals. We have leadership teams. We have positive behavior management teams. And we give them time to talk with one another. We give them common planning time. We give them an opportunity to look at data and bring those recommendations and those ideas back to the school level, the district level, and now we're starting to bring our students and make them a part of that leadership team also. But again, I really believe in that whole motto of servant leadership. So thank you for making it, Donna.
You know, I just might add on the leadership, I think perhaps the biggest thing, our contract was kind of unique in that we incorporated a new teacher evaluation system, incorporated student learning, very difficult issue, test scores, as well as the tenure issues. So we had a lot of things. And to get perhaps the buy-in from the teachers, in my case, is that there had to be some trust issues there, because we're taking a risk. No one wants to be scapegoated. No one wants to be blamed, and we kick that around in education. It's the teacher's fault. No, it's the principal's fault. It's school board's fault. And I mean, my comment is, look, we're not going to fire our way to success. I mean, that's just not the way it can be done. But the people, again, I'm speaking particularly of the teachers, but it wasn't much different for the administrators, parents as well. I mean, I think they will buy in when there's some trust there that I'm not going to be blamed. We are truly going to work on this together. And I mean, in our case, we used to use a collective bargaining process. You know, we put some teeth into what we said that we were going to do. And my final comment is I've been around for classroom teacher over 28 years. Lots of plans coming from the top, well-intentioned, well-written, no buy-in from the teachers or even the building administrators, and of course they would say, well, you didn't ask me, and that's why it failed. And then when the political will dried up or the money dried up, they went to plan. And then a new plan came in with a new superintendent or a new school board. So you know, we felt it was important to use the collective bargaining. We've all agreed to it, we've signed to it, and there's no backing away from it now. We must do this work that we've agreed to.
Can you give one example, and then I want to follow up so other people can talk about the leadership, but could you give an example in that collective bargaining piece of maybe a surprise clause, a clause that may surprise other people that you reached agreement on? Can you think of one?
Yeah, I'll be brief for you. One big part of it is a teacher evaluation system, and we have a unique validation system whereby we have outside validators come out to the classroom. If a teacher is struggling and there's some consequences for them, or if they're exemplary on the other end and ready for leadership roles, we wanted to make sure that another pair of eyes, an expert, another person went to that classroom to do the observation. So we call that validation. So when the principal or the administrator would go out to the teacher's classroom, another person went with them, sat apart from each other, and both did their validation, did their observations, and then we would compare those if needed down the line. As far as everyone knew why for the struggling teachers, we wanted to make sure that they were treated fairly and they were validated, and they weren't scapegoated. But on the exemplary teachers, we're often asked, why would you have the exemplary? These are good teachers. Well, we wanted to also make sure that if we're going to put these people in leadership positions, only that the best and brightest, that we're going to move up to leadership positions. We wanted to be certain of that. So that's kind of a unique clause that we have in our system, the validation piece.
Thank you. Other thoughts on leadership?
I just wanted to say that as a leader now myself, I've been fortunate to have the leaders I've had in the past and currently be excellent role models who allowed me to, as I was just kind of trying out leadership, to take risks, and sometimes I was successful and sometimes I failed. But they were supportive either way. So I've tried to model that and for my staff, and to develop that in some of my staff, and just to go by the mantra that I'm nothing without my staff. So I'd like for them to be able to move on into other roles.
Just as a new teacher perspective, and I think the most important thing for the staff that I talk to a lot, and for myself, is that our leadership is there for us. I mean, they're there to listen to us. They're there to hear us complain. They'll come into our classroom and see what's really going on and see the issue instead of just handing out, you need to do this, you need to do this, this needs to get better. Well, come and see why this is going on, and let's see if we can collaborate. So I think just collaboration and being heard and supported is, I don't know.
So Karen, tell me, how do you, I guess I'm going to say urge or push, maybe it's push, but how do you urge your colleagues to make sure that that they bring their issues forward, you know, that it's not the meeting in the parking lot after the staff meeting in the school, or it's not the closed doors in the classroom after the meeting that you've had. How do you encourage them to do that?
Well, I'm lucky we have an amazing staff, and being on site council, it allowed me to kind of hear what was going on in the leadership of our school. So if a staff, they felt pretty comfortable coming to me if they had a concern or something they were not happy about. And I said, you know, let's go talk. Let's, you know, co-batch is here, let's go talk to him. And we did. I'd bring him down. I'd say, okay, what do you need me to talk to him first? But just basically saying, bring it to their attention.
So encouraging them, and sounds like you've also offered support to them, just to be there with them, to help their voice be heard.
Yeah, I knew just from working so closely with the administration that they were willing to be there for the staff and listen to them. But I think from past administration before my time, I think they're a little hesitant to come forward. So I think it's a culture of change, but we have some really great leaders that are coming forward and really helping.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're all breaking down your own walls in whatever context. I'm going to switch a little bit. So we're moving into an era of college and career ready standards for all students. And we all know the reports and the reasons why we've got to do that. So in your particular sites, what are you doing to ensure that all kids have access to college and career ready standards? And then most importantly, like, can you give an example of support structures you're putting in place to ensure that all of your kids will be successful?
So we're doing a lot of work around the Common Core, which is coming up, which we know if we do it effectively in these transitioning toward, we're pre-K to 8, that our students will be prepared for college and their experiences in college. Our students actually, with the support of Friendship Public Charter Schools, went to Harvard University, so we're doing a lot of college tours. We do college homecoming. We're trying to bring a lot of the college life experiences in a meaningful way into the school. Our students are taught about college and explore colleges through their websites from pre-K to 8. We're trying to do a lot more partnerships with our local colleges. We have Morgan State University, Coppin State University, Towson University, and we're trying to reach out and come up with new innovative ways of bringing that college experience and prepare that information to our students, because they are so young and often in a pre-K to 8 they can't see that far. So we're trying to make that a reality for them.
I know that we've created a freshman success class for our incoming freshmen that introduces them to different colleges, financial aid, scholarship opportunities. We've also, for our English department, we've gone over to the Common Core proficiency-based curriculum, and in it we teach them, we incorporate every day that, you know, these are some skills that you're going to need to be successful in college, and that's, I think it's a 10% part of their grade, but it's opening that communication up about college and what you're going to need, and bringing the colleges in. We have a lot of colleges come in. Last year we had a college liaison, so we had plenty of guest speakers, and we're just moving forward. And a lot more kids are talking about colleges and further plans like that.
Yeah, I mean, ours is probably rather basic in that what we do is we put an awful lot of bodies in the schools, try to reduce class size, try to get additional teachers. For example, a lot of teachers that retire come back and work 19 and a half hours, and they use these people with tremendous expertise. They'll come in and they'll be reading tutors, math tutors to get the kids caught up. We still have our TAG program for talented and gifted to try and address that other end. But it really, and that piece just comes down to personnel, and people tease me and say, you know, because we haven't had cutbacks in the teaching staff in New Haven, despite all the financial difficulties. And they ask me, how's your superintendent doing? I don't know. I don't ask him. I don't want to know. But you know, God bless him, because he does a terrific job at that. That's where we are. So.
I'd like to just mention a couple things unique in our school system. We actually teach a class of it's called Our Rules. Basically, it's teaching kids how to build resources. Our daughter Joan didn't like the class very much, but you know, just because it was all about teaching you how to be successful in college. But once they go through Our Rules, we also have another system of supports where every high school kid has a graduation coach. We don't put that responsibility just on our guidance department. They're responsible for about 5, 6 kids. They follow those kids all the way through. They look at their attendance. They look at their grades. You know, it's another support system. I think what we did is, years ago, they talked, Breaking Ranks talked about having that one significant adult that every kid can go to. Well, we've just kind of tweaked it a little bit. But then we also build on that. We have ACT boot camps, and we have a retired taxpayer from our community who made the mistake one day of coming in my office and asked, how can I help? And he's been working for about 3.5 years now. And so we sponsor these ACT boot camps and get our kids ready. And it's just, you know, we're having some pretty good success with that. Our ACT scores are starting to go up.
Every freshman at North High School takes conceptual physics. Not physical science, but algebra-based conceptual physics, including our self-contained special education students. And in order to make that happen, we make sure that all of our conceptual physics teachers, even the special ed teacher, have planned time together every other day for an hour and a half to sit down and go through strategies and how we're going to get our kids to understand this. We're seeing that they're better at algebra because they are doing hands-on, experimental research into the basic fundamentals of algebra-based physics. That's just one example. We have multiple examples like that, but that's how you get kids ready. You got to build their skills and give them confidence. A lot of them don't even realize that we're doing a little pre-calculus with them.
Besides making sure that we're teaching to the rigor of Common Core, one of the things that we have really focused on at Longley is having college be at the forefront of students' minds all the time, just having visuals about it. They learn their college graduation year when they enter pre-K. They're called to our monthly assemblies by that year. Every classroom has adopted a college, and that college has adopted them. So once a week, they wear their college garb, and and when they come to the office, I often ask them, you know, well, so is this behavior going to help you get to college? So just talking about it all the time and keeping it in the forefront as an expectation, not really a choice, but it's the way things go, elementary, high school, college, so.
I think our time is just about up, and I just feel like we could talk about so much. We haven't gotten into teacher prep and professional development, and just the list goes on and on. I'm sure you'd have a wealth of information to share and ideas to share with us. I have to say, when I was thinking about the responses you were giving to me, I was thinking, so these words came to mind about you're all collaborators and leaders, and you have tenacity and vision and courage and compassion and hope. And I have to tell you that several years ago, it was actually a state board member in Ohio who came to me one day after I had made a presentation, and she gave me a plaque. It's usually like those name plaques you have, and it wasn't my name on it. It said, "Not on my watch." I happened to use that term because I was thinking about all the kids who are slipping through the cracks and thinking about, you know, when do we get school turnaround and school improvement right? Can we afford to wait another generation? And I had said, not on my watch. This can't happen, not on my watch. So if I had a template to give to you, I'd each say, thank you, because not on my watch. You live that every single day. So I really want to thank you, not only on behalf of the U.S. Department of Education and certainly the White House, but thank you for what you do for your kids every single day. It matters, and it matters a lot. So let's give them a round of applause. And we'll have the next group.
Thank you. We want to thank all of our champions, and thank you to our Assistant Secretary for leading that conversation. Great, candid, and thoughtful discussion around leadership, around collaboration, around how we forge agreement around a shared mission. So thank you for all of those important lessons. I'd like to now call up our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy at our Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, Jason Snyder, to lead our second panel. And Jason serves as our Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. He leads the Office of School Turnaround at the U.S. Department of Education and administers the school improvement grants and helps coordinate our school turnaround efforts. Jason brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to this work. He's served as a social studies teacher, as a government history and economics teacher in the past, as well as an education law attorney. But he also brings a great passion and commitment to this work, and has really been a guiding light in building a foundation for the School Improvement Grant Program over the past 3 years at the department. We're very grateful for his leadership. So thank you, Jason. And I'll call up our second round of champs to begin the conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to the first set of champs. Those were some incredibly inspiring words. Just one quick comment here. As we look around and seeing the turnaround work that's going on around the entire country and all corners of the country, it's amazing, as Secretary Duncan has said, that this is really a movement of turnaround right now. This is not just single instances, pockets of excellence here or there, but a real movement to make a dramatic difference in schools that for far too long have denied students an equal education opportunity. And so we're just incredibly grateful for all the work that's being done all across the country. I'd like to start off by asking our panelists, because this is about turnaround, so a little bit about the before and after. If you had to pick one thing and say, this has been the biggest change that's happened over the last couple years, and how it's made a dramatic difference in the lives of students, what would that be? And why don't I start with, Kevin, do you mind if I start with you over there?
That's fine.
All right.
I wasn't anticipating that.
Surprise, all
I
right.
think, the focus on individual student data at our school, and as well as collaboration that you've heard so much of, but we were not looking at student data at the individual level. And I was just thinking a minute ago of, we put in processes in place. So when do we look at that data to make decisions based on the individual students, to intervene or to enrich or to whatever the case may be? And I think before we were not doing that effectively. So the difference is that we look at every child as an individual based on their own specific needs, and we have processes in place that ensures that we're not missing those students. So that, along with collaboration and having a systems approach, and I may talk about that a little bit later, that everything is a system, and how does it all link together so that we're intentionally aligning those systems and processes, that we're not missing students, that we're not leaving things out, that we're all working towards a common goal and a common vision. So to me, those things are what's brought about dramatic change at Lester County High School that we're very proud of.
Anyone else want to jump in?
Well, I go back to the culture and climate of Emerson. It was the first thing that I was not at Emerson prior to being a school turnaround school, so I'm kind of going by what I've heard and the stories I've been told, but it was a place where I don't think parents felt welcome and as a part of our school. It was a place where I felt teachers felt like they were being told what to do and how to do it, one that didn't embrace their strengths and believe in what they were doing. And so the 2 years that I've been at Emerson, I've seen the belief in our students and our staff just grow and grow. I think that's been the catalyst for our improvement.
Dayton's Belmont High School, I often draw comparisons between Belmont High School in Dayton and Eastside High in the movie Lean on Me. That's the kind of environment that Belmont was prior to conversations about school improvement. From the perspective of a union leader, it's nice to have a successful model in our district, because now that successful model can drive the conversation content between the teachers union and the administration in different directions than would have been the case 3 or 4 years ago. So the biggest difference I see sort of from before to after turnaround is the nature of the conversation, the subject matter of the conversation. We are student outcome driven. whether that's college and career readiness, whether that's proficiency. There are a number of ways of describing that. But every conversation we have is student outcome driven, and I'd say that's the biggest difference.
I think I'd say allowing the allowing the students to have a buy-in in the school, focusing more on their self-expression, feeling more comfortable and enthusiastic about actually coming to school and learning and acknowledging their personal talents has really encouraged higher achievement at Savoy Elementary. The students are really becoming more engaged in the process of learning and using their natural talents to contribute to their own learning. It's not just the teacher, but them actually participating in the process, taking ownership of it, has I think, encouraged a better environment at Savoy.
I think one of the biggest differences in our school is just attitude of hope. I feel like everybody looks at what's happening in the school and feel much more hopeful of where we're going. And just to kind of piggyback off what some of these other people have said, I think our students really feel for the first time that they have a voice in their education. And I think that's something that's been ignored for a long time. You know, we've all, as teachers and educators, we've always kind of planned what was best for them. We've had all kinds of programs available to them, but for the first time, I think they feel like they really have some way to influence what their educational outcomes are going to be.
And that's why, Ed, I was out at school a couple months ago, just north of Billings and Pryor, and that's what I heard over and over again from students. I'm more engaged and I'm involved now in my education, and that there's people around me who are pushing me to do more. That's great. Lucia, I'd like to ask you a question about how you got involved. I mean, you're our parent on the panel here, and you decided that you wanted to be part of this turnaround process. And President Obama has called the support for our lowest performing schools our collective responsibility. And you said, this is part of my responsibility. What made you get involved, and what do you do now?
I went to Emerson Elementary as a child, and I've lived in the community all of my life. I have 2 daughters that have always attended Emerson Elementary. I was a stay-at-home mom for 9 years. I did what I thought was right. Read to your child, check the planner, the homework, everything. I get a letter in 2010 saying that our school was one of the lowest performing schools in Kansas. That's when I said, why? And what can I do to help? Why was I not informed? How did I not catch that my daughters were attending the lowest school? That's part of.
You were surprised by that then?
I was surprised.
Yeah. And so what did you decide to do?
Well, I applied for.
She came knocking on my door. Tell us what happened, Brad.
Let me tell you what you did. That was interesting. I learned that I was going to take over Emerson. It was in, I think, March of that year before the next school year. And so in May, I was coming to the school for the first time just to get a feel for it and be introduced as the new principal, upcoming principal. First person I meet as I walk in that auditorium with her 2 daughters was Lucia. So at that point, I knew she's going to be involved in our school one way or another. And so I can either hire to be on my team, is what I ended up choosing to do as our parent community specialist. And before that even happened, I had a lot of people speak to her, what a dynamic person she was, what skills she brought to our school. And her daughters were beautiful, wonderful kids, and we wanted them to stay with us. And so we talked Lucia into joining our team, and it's one of the best decisions I think we've made as a school.
And what kind of activities does Lucia help out with right now? Or Lucia, you tell us, please. What kind of activities do you help out with right now? What are you doing to help improve the school?
Well, I think just keeping the parents informed.
Yeah.
That's been my biggest mission, communicate with them, being upfront with them, genuine, respectful. One of the biggest changes that I've seen in our parents now in the 2 short years is the interaction that they have. They have someone they can speak to about anything, academics, behavior, health.
Keep going. Well, and one of the pieces, you know, as we started the school turnaround process is we knew if we wanted to make the student achievement games we'd hoped for, we couldn't do it by ourselves. We couldn't continue to have the relationship we had that our parents previously had the relationship with the school. Something had to change. We needed more out of our parents. And so one of the biggest pieces was we had to start building relationships with our parents. They had to have a face that they could come to, someone they believed in, that could be that liaison between school and staff and the staff within our school and with our parents. And Lucia was that. You know, things we had to ask of our parents is, you know, we needed your kids to come to school an extra hour and a half longer for those that were falling behind. And so if without that relationship built in, you know, why am I going to send my kid to your school for an extra hour and a half? I mean, we needed to build that. We also, we had a third of our students were reading on grade level when we started. And so dramatic things had to change with their literacy program. And so we needed to increase the amount of reading, not just at school, but at home too. And again, asking for our parents' involvement and commitment. And we cannot do that without the work of our parent community specialists, without the work of my 2 teachers out there, you know, without building those relationships. It's, you know, it's Lucia's job to kind of get the motor going, and now she's helping our teachers continue that work.
That's great. I want to open that up. Is there anybody else want to speak to the importance of community and family engagement and community involvement in your schools?
Sure, I'd like to do that if that'd be okay. I teach on a reservation in Montana, on the Crow Reservation, Crow Nation kids. And community to Native American people is way more important than people may understand. Just how important community is and the collective values that they share. We're a small school, very, very small rural school. And so what we thought we were doing a pretty good job connecting with community because parents felt pretty welcome coming into our school. They would come to our classroom, we could talk to the parents. But what we, at least for myself, let me say it that way, what I didn't realize is that they were a guest in our school. They were coming into our school as guests, and what we needed to do and what we've started to do was to go back in the community and visit the parents in their homes. And now all of a sudden I'm their guest. And that's a whole different dynamic than having them come into my schoolroom. And so tremendous stories that you hear when you get to know the parents at that kind of a level. And when you start just asking them about what's your dreams and aspirations and hopes for your children, it starts to blow you away because you always make these assumptions of when you're in a low-performing school, you think, well, maybe the parents really don't care, you know, because you have these just heart-rending stories of children and what happens there. But when you go and meet the parents in their homes, that's just a real change in attitude in myself. And what I realize now is that there is not one parent that I've ever met that doesn't care, not even a little bit, but a great deal about the future of their child.
Well, I'm sorry, I'd like to piggyback on that as well. Just as an art instructor at Savoy Elementary, a personal story, I've had several parents, you know, normally during PTA, you know, the art teacher is like the last person that they would want to visit. You know, it's like, art, I'll just walk past. But it was so interesting to find parents who had some inclination or you know, some interest in art when they were younger, and they would come in with these stories and say, you know, I used to enjoy doing that. You know, how is my son or daughter doing in your class? You know, how are they, you know, are they completing the projects? Are they, you know, what are they interested in? And actually give me suggestions, you know, on things that might interest their children, you know. So, you know, again, the whole buy-in with the students as well as their parents is so important. And, you know, arts is just another way to bring them all together, the parent and the student, back into the schools. You know.
One of the things, as a former teacher, I know that too often, as educators, we do our work in isolation and don't do it together with others. I was wondering if you guys could give some examples of how, through your turnaround processes, you've broken down that isolation in your schools or in your communities.
I think one of the ways that Lacey County High School, we use what we call professional learning communities through the work of DuFour with that protocol. And they've been true professional learning communities. You know, you can call them PLCs, you can say you're collaborative, but I think through the protocol that we've used, we ask teachers to come out of every meeting with an action plan or some action steps, that something has occurred meaningful for our students when they leave every meeting. So that's been, and those educators, as someone on the last panel said, they solve their own problems. I mean, they're the ones with the ownership. We support as leaders in the building. We're there to offer resources, to support, to give the training necessary or whatever the issues may be. But we've really had very little need to go outside for professional development, because we found that our teachers, when they're collaborating together and they have a set protocol and process and they know what they're looking for and what they're trying to accomplish, they're the ones that can come up with the best answers that there are. So that has been the vehicle behind our turnaround at Lacey County High School, and they're true professional learning communities based on action, and our teachers have been the ones that have stepped up and just made all the difference.
Yeah, I think breaking down some of the traditional school structures is helpful and necessary in a lot of cases. And by that, I mean, for example, in a high school, a 6-period day where 5 periods are teaching, and then you got a planning period. I think in terms of school improvement, what we've been able to do successfully in Dayton is break down that traditional structure and rebuild it so the teachers have common time. Just giving the opportunity, and actually in some cases forcing initially teachers to talk to each other, is important. It gives them time to share what works, what doesn't, to share strategies that are effective, strategies that are not effective. On the other side, it gives teachers and administrators a chance to sit down and talk about where their problems may be. This student isn't acting as he should in my room. How's he doing for the rest of you? And if we can sit collectively and collaboratively and have that conversation, that solution to that problem is always more valid than one that's come up with in a silo, to borrow a term.
Yeah, any isolation that our teachers had with teaching prior to this grant stopped day one, and it wasn't always by choice, because we had eyes and ears watching us. I mean, people from the State Department, school improvement facilitators, principals, district leaders, they were there, and they brought lots of friends with them. So that stopped right away, and it truly was probably the best thing that could have happened, because it started building that comfort level of our teachers that I'm no longer teaching in isolation. The 2 areas that I've seen my teachers do some of their best work at is Kevin talked about the data, looking at student data together, analyzing that data, coming up with action plans for students. Our teachers do some incredible work with that. And the other piece is with planning. One of the things that our school improvement grant has led us to is, as an elementary school, we don't have an hour and a half, 2 hours of planning every single day. And so we use some of those funding to help give our teachers, a half days to plan together and develop great lesson plans together. And that was a great resource for us. And so that collaboration piece is one of the areas that we've been a strength of our school, I think, since as well.
I'd like to also add, it's been one of the greatest professional learning experiences for me as an educational leader. The state of Kentucky, through its District 180, helped support us and brought about a systems thinking way to look at this as a system. And I mean, I for years had learned about curriculum instruction, assessment, professional development, all the research-based strategies that are out there, and there are many that are meaningful within school turnaround, but they've aligned their systems from the state level all the way down and supported us, and caused me, Ms. Susan Allred, to look at our school as a system and how we, and use the linkage chart. Where do I as a person fit in? What can I do to improve that system? Where do these resources through SIG or transformation fit into our system most effectively? Where are we at? And as an educational leader, I mean, that has been the biggest change and the most professional learning that I've gained in my whole career as a principal.
And that was a great thank you, by the way, to all the state leaders who are out
Absolutely.
here today. I think we give them a round of applause as well. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Anybody else want to add on the breaking down the isolation?
Well, this is my first year at Savoy Elementary, and coming into this school, meeting the administration, I really didn't have a sense of isolation. It's always been such a supportive environment in terms of administration, so going back to that being very key to the success of the students as well as the teachers. And through the school improvement grant, we were even allowed planning time over the summertime, you know, so we were actually paid to come during the summertime and to do some extra planning and collaborating, so it's provided that opportunity. And we've developed an environment that's very collaborative, so I think it's working.
So let me ask you two more questions here. One more is about, there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of money behind this, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of time and resources going into it right now. How do you know that your work is being successful? How do you know it's working? Yeah, Brad.
I'll speak to a few things. Student assessment scores. We've seen incredible growth at our school. 40% more of our kids are scoring proficient than they were 2 years ago in such a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. Now that's the bottom line measure for us to take a look at. Going into classrooms and seeing the things that are taking place at our school is so much different than it was 2 years ago. To see the innovative things the kids are using with technology and the differentiation that's taking place and the different opportunities our kids have to demonstrate their learning is amazing to see. I spoke earlier, I think, to our parent involvement. We lost 40% of our kids our first year of being called a turnaround school. And to see within a year, every single one of those kids back, and then more.
Your enrollment jumped.
Our enrollment jumped. And we were looking for extra teachers. And by January, word of mouth is out there that we're succeeding. And our community's spreading that word.
People voting with their feet.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's incredible.
And we've also seen an increase in math and reading scores this past year, working with the arts integration through the Turnaround Arts program with the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities. So that, as well as, from what I understand, a big jump in productivity and enthusiasm through the kids, where the environment the previous year wasn't, as enthusiastic. I think we've definitely excelled in that area.
I can say a couple of things. I was conversing earlier before this conference here with some of the other teachers, and I'm a math teacher. But one thing that our school did, and we're quite early into this is only our second year into this turnaround, but one thing that we've seen already is in our reading scores, I hate to put percentages out there as being a math teacher because I'm not positive of this, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, pretty sure that probably over 50% of our kids were in a remedial reading program, and I know for a fact that we've dropped well down. And again, I can't give you percentages. I'm sorry. If I'd known that I was going to be expected to give percentages, I'd give you an exact percentage. but I'm pretty sure that we're well under, from 50 to well under 20% of our kids are now in some kind of remedial program. So that means that we've taken 30% of our kids and moved them up in their reading levels. Another thing I think is, we can talk about scores, but I think also through surveys and talking to the students, that you get a lot of feedback on positiveness that comes back from the students themselves and how they feel about the school, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about success, what they think about the future. All those, to me, are very indicative of what kind of positive changes are happening in our school.
Yeah, and I think that we do a quarterly reporting process, of course, and we're looking at so many different points of data, which is keeps us focused on what's important. But just to shout out to Lacey County High School in 2009, we only had 15% of our students scoring proficient or distinguished in math and about 40% in reading and language arts. And last year, we had 53% of our students scoring proficient or distinguished in math, and 83% of our students in language arts and reading. And our high school was in the top 10% in the state of Kentucky in college and career readiness gains, from 16 to 42%. So we're looking at multiple levels of data, not just, you know, graduation rate, and I think that's what's very important.
That's an interesting question for me in particular as a union official rather than somebody who's affiliated with a particular school. Being the president of the Dayton Education Association, we have about 1,180 members spread across 30 different work sites, most of those school buildings. And when you ask me how I know that turnaround efforts are working, of course, I can look at data and report cards and so forth and so on, but there certainly is more to it than that. And I think from a bigger picture perspective, the conversations that are going on in buildings and in our district and between and among groups of people that used to not have those conversations, let alone any conversation at all, probably, is a sign to me that this is working. I pay the requisite amount of attention to test scores and report card data, because that is important. But again, as a union official, I'm advocating for teachers to allow them to provide the best learning conditions for their students. So it's almost a layered look at things that I have to do. And transformation, allowing those conversations to have place, allowing those relationships to form and get deeper and more productive and better is certainly a sign to me that our efforts are working.
So one last question here, and then one last question here, and we'll wrap up. Let me just say that, I mean, it's incredible, the stories that we're hearing here today, and that there's been a lot of naysayers out there that say that, you know, turnaround can't happen, that these schools won't improve no matter what kind of resources, no matter what kind of effort we put into it. And what we're seeing from these two panels and the discussions that we've had over the last 2 days is that you're all proving what's really possible and that turnaround can happen. And I'd like to, since you've gone through it, I'd like to end on this question. What advice would you give to a new teacher or principal joining a turnaround school for the first time?
I think I kind of shared about the systems approach, of course, but I think creating a collaborative vision is the most important guiding thing that you have to do, and that takes surveying all stakeholders. And we ask our students, you know, what their beliefs was. And if you would compare them to research-based practices and what our students said in 2010, they could have written books about best practice. And so, you know, our belief statements and our vision of what we want our school to look like in the future, I think that's key. And then creating systems and processes around that vision to get there. And it's going to be different for different schools, but I think that would be the biggest advice I could give.
And I'd echo that. That shared vision is critical. You know, we looked at this school turnaround as an opportunity. What an opportunity for us to show them what great teachers we are, what great students we have. You know, Lucia and I are up here as these champions of change, but we're just representatives of what our teachers did. And, you know, these are the people that did the work on that ground floor and have made this all happen for our kids. And so making sure you believe in your teachers, because they are capable of incredible things, and they surprise me every day of what a great job they do. And it's incredibly impressive to go watch into the classrooms and watch the work they do. So believe in them, and then believe in your kids. You know, we've seen such quick turnaround in our kids, and they're capable of so many things. Just believe in them, and you know, they'll do nothing but surpass your expectations.
I think my advice to a new teacher would be, first of all, fasten your seatbelt. Things move quickly, and you need to be prepared. The other piece of advice really is very simple. Keep your eyes and ears open. If you're watching what people are doing around you and listening to what people are talking about around you, then you're going to assimilate into that culture more easily than you would, again, if you were self-focused, more sort of self-directed and into that teaching in isolation model that has been popular not too many years back. So yeah, keep your eyes open and fasten your seatbelt.
Okay. Anyone else?
Oh, go ahead. No, you
Oh,
may.
I'm sorry. Just very briefly, I would say start with the tone, the environment. Start with the tone of the environment. Look at, we talk about at Savoy, order, purpose, and respect. Having that mutual respect for students, faculty, administration, ensuring that when the students walk in, they feel welcome, they feel invited, and they're there for a purpose. They're not just there to spend 7 hours a day, walking around the schools, but, you're there for a purpose, and, we're here to support you in any way possible.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I just went to my daughter's graduation, and the moderator he was sharing how he's nervous to stand up in front of everybody and, introduce everybody and do all these different things, and he was making a big fuss about it, and finally his wife said to him, it's not about you, it's about the kids. And I think if somebody's coming into your school, that's what you need to tell them. This isn't about you, this is about the kids. And what are we going to do to get everybody involved with success for our kids?
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Well, thank you, everyone. This has been very inspiring to hear all your stories. And Ed and Brett and Lucia, I've had a chance to see your kids, and they are inspiring as well, too, in large part because of the work that you're doing. They feel very much involved, and I know that's the case. Very much involved and very much engaged and very much pushed. That's the word we hear from kids all the time, on being pushed more. And I know that's the case in all of your schools. So let's give them all a big round of applause. And thank you again.
And actually, before I get started, Jason, I know a lot of folks on your team worked on the event today. If you wouldn't want to just give them a shout out?
Sure, that'd be great.
Have
Thanks,
them
Kyle.
stand.
Yeah,
for all the
appreciate
work
that.
they did.
If the whole Office of School Turnaround could stand up, and that'd be great. Give them a big round of applause. And just and one more, and Kyle, just one more big thanks to all of our SEA state turnaround leaders who are here today and have been willing participants in a great 2-day conference in a peer-to-peer effort to help support each other in the really challenging work that we're doing around turnaround. So big round of applause again for you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Jason. And just a big thanks again, especially to Tina and to Mike Lamb. Tina, her last day is Friday. It's unfortunate that she's leaving the administration family, but we're happy to send her off with the nice Champions event. So I just want to end today with an ask for all of you. And that ask is that you share your story of being here today, and you tell your story about all the work that you do and about the work of these Champions of Change. Tweet about it, Facebook about it, email your friends and your colleagues when you get home, #WHChamps. But there are 3 reasons that I ask all of you to tell your story when you're here in Washington and when you go back home. The first of which is, I'm sure all of you heard a new idea today. These champions are champions for a reason. They're doing incredible work in their communities. And the way that good ideas spread is through our networks, through our colleagues, through our friends, through our families. And we want good ideas to spread across the country, and we want the story of these champions and all the work that all of you do to spread far and wide. The second reason is that there's a debate going on in Washington and across the country that I'm sure many of you hear quite a lot about. And the best way to make this debate real is not here in Washington. It's about making the stories local across the country and making sure that we keep and fund and make a priority programs like school turnarounds and like education funding. And making that story local, your voice is being heard across the country. Your voices are the most important ones in this debate, so making sure you get the word out about that as well. And then the third of which is that I think we can all agree, no matter what side of the political divide we're on, that we need more champions of change. We need more folks like the people we're honoring here today. And we need people to be inspired across the country. And we hope that when you tell the story of what you saw here today, when you talk about these champions of change, and the work that they're doing across the country and in their communities, that we inspire 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 more folks across the country to take up the work and get down to work in the communities just like our champions are doing here today. So that's what my ask is of all of you. Thank you all for coming, and let's give one more big round of applause for our champions. All right. Thank you very much.